What's up? This is Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff, and on today's show, John Spytek doesn't think Fernando Mendoza is good enough to start for the Raiders next season. Plus, the Golden Knights are back in action, but they won't be at full strength. And UNLV football got a more difficult football schedule when they're trying to make the college football playoff. That was a great clickbait way to start the show. So, Fernando Mendoza is the presumed number one pick for the Raiders. And John Spytek talked not about Mendoza, but about rookie quarterbacks yesterday. Here we go. So John Spytek talked to the media at the NFL Combine. And he said a lot of things that I think were kind of meaningless, not all that insightful. We'll get to what he said about Max Crosby in a few minutes. But something that John Spytek did talk a little in depth about was not starting a rookie quarterback in week one. He talked about it in his press conference, and then he did a side session with the local media. He mentioned it again there, right? He was asked about, like, how do you support a young quarterback? And one of the things he mentioned was having another good quarterback to play. That's one of the things he mentioned to support a rookie. And then the big opinion that I think he gave was that he thinks organizations have failed quarterbacks in the past by drafting them in the first round and then playing them right away. He doesn't think that the quarterbacks fail the organizations, right? You can think of somebody like a Justin Fields, right? Did he fail the Jets or did the Jets fail him, right? Those scenarios, John Spytek threw out yesterday that he thinks that the team, the organization, is the one that has failed the quarterback, not necessarily the other way around. So, notable because this is the general manager of the team picking first overall. This is the general manager of the team that's going to take Fernando Mendoza at number one, unless something weird happens. And he's basically saying he doesn't want to start Fernando Mendoza in the first week of the season. Now, the last 6 quarterbacks to be taken first overall, because I think there's a key difference in being taken first overall and just simply being taken in the first round. But the last 6 quarterbacks to be taken first overall have all started week one. That's Cam Ward, Caleb Williams, Bryce Young, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, and Kyler Murray. If we go back to Baker Mayfield in 2018, he did not start his first 2 games for the Cleveland Browns. He started week 3 and on, but he did not start the first 2. It was Tyrod Taylor that started those first 2 games for Cleveland. Jared Goff in 2016 did not start his first 9 games. That was Case Keenum that got those starts instead. So it's not completely unheard of to draft a quarterback first overall and then not play him in the first game of his rookie season. But it hasn't happened in a while. We do have to go back a decent amount, almost a decade, to get to the last time a quarterback was picked first overall and then didn't start. And I think there's a lot of reasons for this. First off, drafting a quarterback first overall almost certainly means you don't have a good quarterback. And the Raiders fall into that category. We'll get to Geno Smith in just a second. He's probably not even going to be on the team. So, like, if you're comparing who the Raiders have on the roster, it's Aiden O'Connell. And, like, Fernando Mendoza can't beat Aiden O'Connell out in the preseason. Fernando Mendoza can't beat Geno Smith out in the preseason if he's still around. Like, you're taking a quarterback at first overall because you think they're really good. Like, you think they're a franchise-changing quarterback. And you're probably picking first overall because your quarterback was terrible. So how does he not just win the job on merit? In theory, he could be the best quarterback option, and the Raiders just as an organization could say, we're making the choice to not play him now because we're playing for the future, which I'm not completely against. But, like, okay, he's better than Aiden O'Connell or whoever it is, but we don't want him to start because we think it's in our best interest to have him sit. That's not the worst organizational idea. I do wonder how well you could sell that to the rest of the team, though, right? Like, if you had Mendoza and Aiden O'Connell taking reps through preseason, and it's clear Mendoza's the better quarterback, and then you don't start him, you start the guy that everybody knows is worse, how does the rest of the team feel about that? how does Max Crosby feel about that? Right? So that's one of the big reasons as to why a quarterback taken first overall starts. He usually doesn't have to beat out good quarterbacks. He doesn't have to beat out anybody that's even decent to win the job. The other big reason, though, is drafting a quarterback. The big benefit is the contract, right? You get that rookie contract. Fernando Mendoza is going to be fairly cheap compared to most good starting quarterbacks, even most average starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Meaning that if Fernando Mendoza is just average, he's going to be an excellent value for the Raiders while he is on his rookie contract. Rookie contract's 4 years. There's a fifth-year option, so you can get that fifth year. The fifth-year option is a little expensive, but we're talking about 4 years. You have 4 years to cash in on this value. And if you don't start him in week 1, okay, maybe you start him in week 3 like Baker, then it's just like, what the hell did those 2 weeks do? But maybe you start him in the 10th game of the year like Jared Goff because you want to give him the full half a season to learn, but you've basically thrown away a year of that rookie contract value by not starting him. I think you start Mendoza right away. And I don't even think it's that much of a question, to be honest. I don't know. I don't really love that John Spytek's even thinking about it and sort of telling us that he might not want to start Mendoza right away. But I think you start him right away because the number one thing that's going to determine the Raiders' success over the next 4 to 5 years and beyond that is how good is Fernando Mendoza. And the Raiders are going to have to figure out, is he truly a franchise quarterback? Is he a bust? Or, most likely, somewhere in between, right? Is he above average, below average, right? He's probably going to be one of those two. And the Raiders have to figure that out. And the best way is to let him play. The best way to develop a player, the best way to figure out if a player is any good is to let him play. That's better than watching, right? I don't think it would be terrible to sit Mendoza because the Raiders are rebuilding and the wins this season don't matter if we're looking at this in a small sample size or a short window. I don't think it's terrible, but in the long term, Mendoza should be playing as much as possible, right? Like yesterday, when John Spytek talked to the media, he got asked about the offensive linemen, Charles Grant and Caleb Rogers, that didn't play until the last fourth of the season. He got asked, did you want to see them play more? And John Spytek's answer was, well, it's irrelevant if I wanted to see them play more. It didn't happen. It was very much a you're damn right I wanted to see them play more, but it doesn't matter now because it didn't happen. So he just last year wanted to see the offensive linemen play more and throw them into a bad situation, throw them into the fire to get an evaluation to know how good they are. But he doesn't want that with Fernando Mendoza. That's backward logic. That's not consistent logic. So I think it'd be dumb to not start him. Figure it out. Figure out the offensive line and make it a tenable situation for Fernando Mendoza. Now, on Geno Smith, because we did get some real answers here on Geno Smith. John Spytek got asked about Geno Smith this offseason. First off, says he has not talked to him this offseason. Okay, GM hasn't talked to the starting quarterback. I feel like that's telling. And then when asked about Geno Smith's future, he said, this was part of his answer, the contract predicates that a little bit. So what that means is on March 13th, Geno Smith gets $8 million more guaranteed on his contract. So if the Raiders cut him before March 13th, that $8 million doesn't become guaranteed. Cutting Geno Smith before March 13th means Mark Davis saves $8 million and the Raiders save $8 million in cap space, right? John Spytek basically just told us they're cutting Geno Smith because the contract says he gets an extra $8 million if he's on the roster on March 13th. Not shocking. He was bad last year, right? Paying him an extra $8 million when you're drafting a quarterback first overall. But he just told us that. So Geno Smith is almost certainly not going to be on this roster. Now, couple that with what we just talked about and Fernando Mendoza potentially not starting week 1. Who the hell is starting for the Raiders in the first game of the season? Is it Aiden O'Connell? Are we going to get Aiden O'Connell games next season after they draft Fernando Mendoza number 1 overall? That would be hilarious. this fan base having to watch more Aiden O'Connell after they drafted Fernando Mendoza? I don't think that situation wouldn't play out very well for John Spytek and Clint Kubiak if that's what they do. I think Roger Goodell might start pulling an Adam Silver and trying to punish the Raiders for tanking if they start Aiden O'Connell over Fernando Mendoza. But I guess I'm a little worried the Raiders might do too much at the quarterback position. Because again, in my mind, draft Fernando Mendoza and play the guy. Let Aiden O'Connell be the backup. Hell, I think you might be fine letting Geno Smith be the backup. Geno Smith's getting $16 million in dead money. He's getting paid something by the Raiders next year. It just won't be 24 if they cut him. Like, to me, I think what I'm afraid of the Raiders doing is drafting Mendoza first overall, and then this idea that he can't start week 1. And so the Raiders then go out and spend money on a backup quarterback. And they have their Tyrod Taylor for Baker Mayfield or their Case Keenum for Jared Goff. Maybe it'd be cheap. Maybe. But like, I think spending any assets on a backup quarterback just to be the guy for half a season before we let Fernando Mendoza start is a waste of resources. Like, it just seems stupid to do that. So I don't know. I feel like they're going to make that mistake, and it's going to be like, why the hell did they do that? We're like, remember when Fernando Mendoza didn't start the first 8 games of the season? We're like, why did they do that? That was stupid. So we got, I think, a lot about the quarterback position from John Spytek. Something I don't think we got a lot about from John Spytek is Max Crosby's status. So Spytek talks to the media, and he was asked about Max Crosby. By the way, shout out for finally asking the GM about Max Crosby. But one of the main headlines is Spytek during his press conference, Spytek saying that he anticipates Max Crosby being a Raider next season. But I want to play this. I want you to actually hear what John Spytek said, because the way the question was asked and the way the question was answered, I think, is very, very important context.
Trade talks around Max Crosby. Do you anticipate him being in a Raider uniform when the season starts?
I do, yes.
So John Spytek never said the words anticipate or even Crosby, right? All John Spytek did was agree with the reporter. That's how the question was phrased to him. And John Spytek just said, yes. Yes, I do. 3 words, which he almost certainly would say if he was trading Max Crosby, which is what he would almost certainly say if he was not trading Max Crosby, right? Like, that's what the answer would be. He's not going to come out and say, hey, do you anticipate Crosby being a Raider? No, I don't. Because then that's the headline. That's the story. That's the only thing he's getting asked about the rest of the time. And they're not ready to do that yet, obviously. But the part I found interesting and telling from this is that John Spytek did not elaborate at all. Not at all. This is not a question he had any interest in talking about, any interest in discussing more. It was Max Crosby. I'll give you 3 words on it, right? Now, he did get asked more questions about Crosby. By the way, one of them was, are you confident Max will remain in Vegas? To which he said, I am. He went from 3 words down to 2 words. So he did it twice in the same press conference where he gets asked about Crosby and just a couple of words, shuts it down, doesn't say anything else. He did say a little bit more. He got asked about his relationship, and he said that he has a great relationship and mentioned seeing him in the building. So he did give a little bit more than a 2 or 3 word answer when asked sort of a tangential question about Crosby and not directly, hey, is this guy going to be on your team next year? But it was still pretty short, and it wasn't really, he didn't really elaborate. He didn't give us anything new. We all know Max Crosby's been in the building. It's been like the number one detail. It's like, yeah, Crosby's rehabbing at the Raiders facility, right? So yesterday, I don't think John Spytek said anything that declares Crosby is or is not going to be a Raider. I don't think he hinted at trading or not trading him yesterday, because I think everything that he said could be looked at as, well, yeah, that's exactly what he would say if they're trading him. Or, yeah, that's exactly what he would say if they're not trading him. Or, and this is what I think is the most likely, still, he would say that if he has no idea. John Spytek has no idea if he's trading Max Crosby or not. Because I don't think Max Crosby knows if Max Crosby wants to be a Raider. We've talked about this before on this show. Max Crosby loves being a Raider. He loves playing in Vegas. He built his house here, right? He's mentioned that. He loves it. He doesn't want to play for another team. If Max Crosby had his way, he wins the Super Bowl with the Raiders, right? Like that's what he wants the most. But I think Max Crosby realizes he's probably not winning a Super Bowl with the Raiders. Maybe in a few years if things go really, really well, but he'll be 31 or 32 years old, whatever it is by that time. So I don't think Crosby's made up his mind because I think he has to decide between, do I stick with this organization that I really love playing for and really love being in Vegas, or do I go somewhere where I could potentially win the Super Bowl next season or the year after that, right? I just don't think he's made up his mind. And so it's everybody's in limbo, sort of waiting for it. And it certainly sounds like John Spytek doesn't know the answer to that question either. So that, I think, that's my takeaway from it, is nobody has any idea. Nobody knows if Max Crosby is going to be a Raider or not next year because Max Crosby doesn't know if he's going to be a Raider or not next season. One last thing from John Spytek that I just thought was funny. He got asked if he trusts Jack Bech can be a number one wide receiver. That was the word, trust that Jack Bech can be a number one wide receiver. And John Spytek said, I trust Jack Bech, the football player, and then went on to say that there are very few number one wide receivers, right? He elaborated on this one a little bit. But why is that even a question? Jack Bech had 200 receiving yards last year. He barely played. By the way, he's played 5 seasons in college football and the NFL. Do you know how many times he's had more than 500 yards in a season? Once. One time. Why was that a question? I think it's more likely Jack Bech is off the team before the 2027 season starts than it is he becomes a number one wide receiver. He's not that. He hasn't been that. He's got one decent season as a wide receiver in college and the NFL over 5 years. To think like, oh, this guy could be the number one next year is foolish. To think like, what is the best case scenario for Jack Bech? He's the number 3 option in the passing game? Brock Bowers, as long as Brock Bowers is healthy, he's not number 1. I guess he could be the number 2, but he'd have to take a leap that takes him ahead of Trey Tucker and the Raiders not address the wide receiver position. Because if the Raiders sign any medium to high money wide receiver, or if the Raiders spend any draft pick in the first 3 rounds, you're going to assume that guy's going to be more productive than Jack Bech was last year. And so now it's Bowers, Tucker, new guy, and then Jack Bech. I just don't understand why there would be a question about Jack Bech being a number 1 wide receiver.
Battle Blast, been serving Las Vegas since June 2012 with the very best in family entertainment. We are proud to provide the best facility, equipment, and service possible. Strap on laser tag vests, step into the 5,600 square foot 2-story arena designed to look like a worn-torn city street. An exciting atmosphere filled with exhilarating music, blacklight effects, and fog. Battle Blast also features a viewing deck for those not playing can watch players vest up and catch a view of the action going on in the arena. In between games, check out our arcade and prize center and enjoy tasty treats from our snack bar. Birthday parties, sports teams, group outings, and corporate events. Battle Blast does it all. We want to make your Battle Blast experience so good you'll want to return again and again. Battle Blast is the ultimate destination for family fun and friendly competition.
Technically Correct is brought to you by Battle Blast Las Vegas, the best laser tag in Vegas. Battle Blast is the perfect spot for your next event. I should get the words right. Event. Your kid's birthday party, a corporate event, or Little League season ends and you need an end-of-season party, Battle Blast Las Vegas, place to go. You can do it for your own birthday party as well. Battle Blast has an arcade and prizes giving you more than just laser tag. It's Battle Blast Las Vegas, located at 8125 West Sahara Avenue, your next stop for fun in Las Vegas. The Golden Knights are back, but they might not have any of their U.S. or Canadian Olympians. Jack Eichel and Noah Hannafin are not going to play today. They stayed for the State of the Union address, and they're not going to be back. I don't think any of the U.S. players are playing for any of their NHL teams today. But Bruce Cassidy said yesterday that he wasn't sure if the Canadians would be playing, which is Mitch Marner, Mark Stone, and Shea Theodore. So the Golden Knights might be without 5 of their best players for this game. And the interesting part here is you're going to play 1 game without them, potentially, all 5 of them. That's not great. Probably going to be a bad roster. But they play Wednesday, and then they play Friday, and then they play Sunday, right? The schedule is very compacted here. So how much are the Golden Knights going to give Olympians time off, especially guys from Team USA and Team Canada that played all the way through to the last day of the Olympics? Do the Golden Knights give them any sort of rest? Because Bruce Cassidy talked about that last year with the Four Nations face-off. He talked about it again before the break about, hey, do we give them a break or something like that? The schedule it's a ton of games. It's basically every other game or a back-to-back. That's the schedule. So do the Golden Knights, is it just, hey, they don't play Wednesday and then they're back Friday and they're just part of the team? Or do the Golden Knights say, hey, maybe we're going to give Eichel and Stone, maybe they stagger it, but we're going to give Eichel or Stone or Marner some days off, right? Where they're going to play 3 of these next 4. Maybe. And is that the best option? It might be, right? I have no problem with the Golden Knights sitting those guys. Give them some time off. Now, the division race could be tight, but I just don't think that a few games in February into March, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. I say that, and then, if they rip off one of these 5-game losing streaks again, then it's like, uh-oh, the Kings are right at their door trying to knock them out of the playoffs. So we'll see. The good news is the Golden Knights do have some injured players coming back. Braden McNabb, Colton Sissons, and Brandon Saad were all taken off of IR so they can play. Shout out to Cinnamon.Vegas for tweeting that out. Sissons is the one that I'm most fascinated by. No Jack Eichel means we won't necessarily see this play out the way it should, but I've talked a lot on this show about defensive zone faceoffs. With Colton Sissons out injured, with William Karlsson out injured, the Golden Knights have a lack of centers, and they have a lack of centers that Bruce Cassidy trusts in the defensive zone. It's Jack Eichel, and then nobody else. Tomas Hertl had to sort of be that next guy in line to take the defensive zone faceoffs, and the team's performance when Hertl was on the ice has been awful when he's been taking a high percentage of defensive zone faceoffs. Colton Sissons takes a ton of defensive zone faceoffs. Bruce Cassidy trusts him in that role. So when Eichel's back, now that Sissons is back, those will be the 2 guys that take the majority of your defensive zone faceoffs. You won't have to put Hertl out there. We'll see if Marner stays at center, how the lines are played out, we'll see. But if it's Marner, or if it's Riley Smith, or if it's a Tanner Lisinski, whoever it is that's the other center, you don't have to put those guys in those scenarios when Eichel and Sissons are in the lineup. UNLV is back tonight as well. They are at Grand Canyon. It would be very funny if UNLV bust 500 students at the game. I know there's not 500 students that show up to UNLV games, but it would have been very funny if they had found a way to send 500, just fans, I guess, to Grand Canyon. But this is sort of a test of a theory here. How much better are the Rebels when they play in front of a hostile crowd? Because we've seen most of their best performances when there has been some sort of hostile crowd, right? The best home game, it is the Grand Canyon win, right? And that's when Grand Canyon sent 500 students to Las Vegas to cheer against UNLV. It's going to be a good crowd. It's going to be a good environment. Does that actually help UNLV? Also, if you're eyeing a top 4 seed in the Mountain West tournament, UNLV kind of needs to win this game. They're 1 game back of Grand Canyon. If they win, they would tie them and also take the tiebreaker by having the 2-0 head-to-head series win. If they lose, then you go down the line on the tiebreakers, and they might not win the tiebreaker. So winning this would go a long way to getting a top 4 seed. Top 4 seed is important because you get a bye. But also, there's a big difference between the 6 seed and the 7 seed this year because there are 2 god-awful teams in the Mountain West, San Jose State and Air Force. And if you're the 5 or the 6 seed, yes, you have to play a first-round game. You don't get the bye, but you get Air Force or San Jose State, and especially Air Force. You're getting as close to a bye as you can possibly get. Whereas if you fall down to 7, now you have to play a real opponent, right? You might lose to Wyoming. You might lose to Fresno State. UNLV's lost to both of those teams this year. So Boise State and Colorado State, they're right behind UNLV. You've got to hold them off. Interestingly enough, UNLV does have the tiebreaker over Boise State. They do not have it over Colorado State. So those are 2 teams to hold off as well to make sure you don't fall to 7, and then all of a sudden you could be out of the Mountain West tournament in the first round. In UNLV football news, the Mountain West schedule is updated. So the Mountain West put out their conference schedule for football, and then they're like, you know what? we're going to add a new team in North Dakota State. So they've got to redo it. We don't know the dates. They haven't set the dates, but they've set the opponents. UNLV will play at home, Nevada, Northern Illinois, North Dakota State, and Wyoming. UNLV will play on the road at Air Force, Hawaii, New Mexico, and San Jose State. They will not play UTEP this season. With North Dakota State coming in, it means every Mountain West team will miss one opponent. So UNLV will not play UTEP this season. And this is what I find interesting here. UTEP probably not going to be a good team in the Mountain West this upcoming season. They'll probably be towards the bottom of the conference. North Dakota State, we'll see. They're making the jump from FCS to FBS, but I expect them to be one of the better teams in the conference. I expect them to be a top half team, maybe even contend. Well, they can't win the Mountain West Championship, but contend for the Mountain West regular season championship. Do you think it's better for their playoff chances to make their Mountain West schedule harder? Because that's what happened here. UNLV lost UTEP and gained North Dakota State. The Mountain West schedule got harder. North Dakota State should produce a better game. They'll almost certainly have more fans and a better atmosphere in Vegas. It should help UNLV's strength of schedule, right? It should help their metrics by having that opponent on the schedule. And I'm happy with the change, by the way, just generally wanting to see interesting games. I think this is good. But if we're talking about the college football playoff, I think UNLV's chances to make the playoffs are going to be made or broken. That phrase is not as good in the past tense. It's going to be made or broken in the non-conference. They play North Texas, Memphis, and Cal. If UNLV goes 3-0 in those games, UNLV will want the easiest Mountain West schedule possible. Because if they win those 3 games, they are going to be in really good shape to go to the college football playoff as the group of 6 representative if they go through the Mountain West schedule with 1 loss. Making the schedule harder means that more likely you go through with 2 losses or 3 losses, right? If UNLV goes 1-2 in those 3 non-conference games, then they're probably out of the playoff picture. They can't afford to lose a 3rd one, and that means adding North Dakota State over UTEP is a bad idea. But they go 2-1, then maybe they'll need a little boost in scheduling and they can afford 1 loss along the way. Like, this is the fascinating part of scheduling if you're a group of 16. How do you balance racking up wins with trying to impress the committee with marquee games or better strength of schedule games? I don't know what the right answer is, right? Part of me thinks you should play the easiest games possible, right? But 12-0 UNLV and they rank 121st in strength of schedule versus 10-2 Boise State, who's 39th in strength of schedule. I think they might take Boise State. So I don't know the right answer to it, but it's sort of a fascinating thing that these group of 6 programs are going to have to figure out year to year. And the problem is, by the way, it'll probably change year to year. Some year they're gonna award strength of schedule for being good, and some other year they'll be like, strength of schedule doesn't matter. Give us the 13-0 team. We want the undefeated group of 6 team in here. So is it good? Is it bad? I don't know that UNLV's schedule getting a little bit harder is good or bad for their playoff chances. Good for entertainment because it'll be a better game. In the NFL, the Texans are not trading C.J. Stroud. Houston general manager Nick Caserio, he called this idea moronic, said Stroud wasn't going anywhere. I didn't even know there were C.J. Stroud trade rumors. Didn't know that existed. But C.J. Stroud is the exact quarterback that NFL teams mess up with all the time. Because how good is C.J. Stroud? He's good enough to be a starter in the NFL. He's one of the 20 best quarterbacks in the NFL. Is he better than that, though? Because I think the answer is no. And we saw the playoff games. But C.J. Stroud is good enough to be a starter, and he's 25, right? He's still young. So there's potential. But C.J. Stroud should not be considered good enough to get the big contract. Because I don't think you're winning the Super Bowl because of C.J. Stroud. You might win a Super Bowl the way the Seahawks did. We're like, oh, wow, this is the best defense in football. And we've got good playmakers around him. And the offensive play caller is on a heater, right? But you're not winning a Super Bowl because of C.J. Stroud, which means as an organization, you can't afford to give him the big contract. You can't afford to give him he's top 5 in the league in pay. But that's what happens all the time. Tua is the best example right now. The Dolphins are going to cut him. right? After they gave him a massive deal, because these are the worst types of quarterbacks to have, because you feel bad moving on from them, because you're probably going to end up with a worse quarterback than CJ Stroud, right? The Texans, if they traded him right now, would probably end up with a worse quarterback than CJ Stroud. And NFL teams do not want to go backwards at the quarterback spot, even though it might help them 3 years down the road at having a better quarterback. So they're probably going to end up paying him. And we're going to say, CJ Stroud doesn't deserve that much money because he's not good enough. Here's the thing. Stroud is entering the 4th year of his rookie deal. The Texans should play out this year. They can pick up his 5th-year option and give him 2 more years before they have to commit long-term to him. That's what I would do, and see, hey, you're 25. What do you do when you're 25 and 26? How good are you at 25 and 26? If you turn out to be really good because, hey, everything you've done so far this year has been when you're like 24 or younger, awesome. Well, here's a big contract. If it's what we saw the last 2 years, we'll let you walk in free agency. Let someone else make the mistake of giving CJ Stroud a bunch of money. That's going to be the Fernando Mendoza question as well, by the way, where I'm getting ahead of myself a lot. But most likely, Fernando Mendoza is going to be in that above average to below average range. Most likely, there's going to be some games, some seasons, some stretches where he looks really good. And there's going to be some stretches where you're like, ooh, is this guy even a starter? Right? It's most likely that's going to be what happens over the next 3 years. And we're going to be having this conversation about Fernando Mendoza. Do you extend him or do you not extend him? Bischoff's Briefs is brought to you by Battle Blast Las Vegas, the best laser tag in Vegas. Host your next birthday party at Battle Blast. You can book the party package and you'll get a private party room, a party host, pizza, soda, arcade tokens, and of course, laser tag. Plus, you can book a game for adults. Kids play and you're like, oh, that looks fun. You can have one for adults added on. Battle Blast Las Vegas, located at 8125 West Sahara Avenue. Your next stop for fun in Vegas. You guys want to hear what my sister-in-law did? So, I didn't have a show on Tuesday. My sister and her wife are moving from Iowa to Hawaii. They're in Hawaii now. I had to help them. I had to drive to Los Angeles because they're taking their 3 dogs with them, and they're shipping a truck. So they didn't have a vehicle, and they had to get the dogs to a hotel, and then the hotel to the airport. Yeah. So I went and helped them. I'm a great brother. Sister-in-law bought a fish at PetSmart for me and my wife. Gives it to us. We don't have fish. We don't have an aquarium. We don't have anything to take care of a fish. What am I supposed to do with this fish? I'm at a hotel in El Segundo with a fish. Drove it back to Vegas. We returned it at the PetSmart here in Las Vegas. Because what are we going to do with the fish? Why are you giving me a fish? Don't give me a fish, Hannah. Unbelievable. Now, in the NFL, no one is trying to ban the tush push. ESPN had a story that said there's no real push to ban the tush push. Last year, the NFL owners voted on a rule that would have banned the tush push, but it failed. And I believe it's all because the Eagles sucked in the second half of the season. If the Eagles had won the Super Bowl again, this play would have been banned. If they had made a deep playoff run, this play would have been banned. But NFL owners are too short-sighted to understand things and just don't want to ban it unless it's a team that won the Super Bowl. The tush push should be banned for multiple reasons. First off, as we saw this year, the refs can't call it properly. Eagles' offensive line moves basically every time before the snap, never gets penalized. We had that horrific, I don't remember who it was against, but we had that horrific play where Jalen Hurts gets the ball stripped out of his hands and the refs say, no, that's not a fumble. His forward momentum had stopped. His forward progress had stopped when it hadn't. And every time the Eagles run that play, it's just banking it off of, oh, they're not going to blow this dead for forward progress because we're still pushing. They were still pushing in this one, and the Eagles got the benefit of it out there. Also, the rule book, inherently unfair. And I know plenty of rules are inherently unfair against the defense, but the whole idea of the tush push is we can push our quarterback more than you can push him backwards. But even if the defense pushes him backwards, they don't gain anything. Because once you have forward progress, you can't put the ball backwards just because the defense pushed you. So it's not a fair rule either. But most importantly, you can forget about everything else I just said. The reason the tush push should be banned is because the play sucks to watch. It's the least fun play in the sport. You can't see the ball. The most important object on the field. You cannot see it. There is no athleticism on display. Yes, there is strength on display, and that is an important part of football, but it's just bodies pushing each other, and we don't know where the ball is. We don't know what's happening, right? It sucks. It's not fun to watch. Ban it. You know who did ban it? The United Football League, the UFL, has some fun rules for their upcoming season. They have banned the tush push. Good job, UFL. I'm on board for that. It's boring play. It's terrible play. Ban it. But beyond banning the tush push, they've got some other fun rules. First off, if you kick a field goal of over 60 yards in the UFL, it is worth 4 points, which is incredible. By the way, are there UFL kickers that are making 60-yarders routinely? They'll be in the NFL soon, right? Like if you make a 62-yarder in the UFL like twice, an NFL team's going to sign you, right? But one of the best parts of football is that you can score in different amounts. And it causes strategy that we don't see in other sports. If you're playing soccer or hockey and it's a one-possession game, you have to tie the game, right? If you're playing football, the difference between being down 2 points and 3 points is huge, but both are one possession. The difference between down 3 points and 4 points is huge. Still, one possession. The difference in 3, 4, 6, big, one possession. The difference in 6 and 7 and 7 and 8, all of these small increments are one possession, still within one possession, but they all mean so much at the end of games. Being down 3, I can kick a field goal and get to overtime. Being down 7, I field goals off the table. I got to score a touchdown. Being down 8, I got to score a touchdown and go for 2. Right? It's part of what makes football so good. And the UFL is introducing a new point total. You can now score 4 points on a drive. That's great because now you're going to have the obvious scenarios where you kick a 4-point field goal to tie or win the game, right? That's the obvious one there. But how do you manage it before it's the last drive of the game? As a coach, how worried am I that their kicker will make a 4-point field goal, right? It's 4th and 1. I'm at the 20-yard line. There's 45 seconds left in a tie game. Do I kick the field goal to go up 3, or am I worried that I'm going to lose because they're going to hit a 4-point field goal the other way? It's great. It's tremendous for the strategy part of it, and that's what football does really, really well. I also desperately want to see a team that is losing and that is in range for like a 57-yard field goal. If it's third down, if it's like 3rd and 8, you have to lose yards to kick a 60-yarder, right? If you're down 4, like if it's 3rd and 8, what do you think's more likely? Your kicker can make a 61-yarder if I lose 3 yards, or we can get 8 yards on this play and go score a touchdown. Again, the strategy part of it is great. I love this rule. I'm incredible rule change. I'm not going to watch the UFL, but hopefully other people watch it and they tell me that, oh, look at this scenario late in the game, and the NFL's like, oh, do we need to do that? Love that. The other rule that they're putting in, and I don't like this one, you can't punt from inside your opponent's territory. So if you cross midfield, but it's 4th down and you're at their 48-yard line, you either have to go for it with your offense or try a field goal. You will not be allowed to punt. Now, there are a couple of caveats. First off, if you take a penalty and go back across midfield, you still can't punt. So 4th and 8 at the 48-yard line, if you take a delay a game to move backwards, you can't punt. You still have to go for it. Also, final 2 minutes of each half, you can punt. I guess that's sort of like a, hey, we don't want a team losing a game because we told them they can't punt when punting would probably be the right choice. I guess that's what that caveat is. I don't like this rule, even though I love going for it across midfield, right? You should be going for it across midfield all the time, right? I mean, kick field goals if it helps you, but like punting from like the opponent 42, unless it's like 4th and 12, what are you doing? Go for it. But I also believe in letting dumb people, dumb teams, dumb coaches be dumb. If they want to do something that hurts their chances of winning, let them do it. Don't stop them, right? Let them be dumb. Let the smart teams, the smart coaches have an advantage because they're going to go for it in this situation where the dumb teams won't go for it. Let teams make their own bad decisions. That's what I'm a fan of. But this has been Technically Correct. I'm Tyler Bischoff. Thank you for tuning in.